1310 WIBA and the MDR Home Show with Making Dreams Realty with Keller Williams online, mdrealtywi.com. That's mdrealtywi.com. Telephone number for Making Dreams Realty, 480-8599. That's 480-8599. And joining us this morning, we've got both a listing and a buyer's agent in studio this morning. We have got, of course, Kevin Clark and Ryan Koenig. How you guys doing this week?
Doing great. How are you doing, Sean?
Doing really well.
Yeah, doing good. Sean Preble.
How you
Good
guys?
to be here.
So we've got you guys both in the studio. So we've got both sides of the market. We've got the buyers, we've got the sellers, we've got the listers, we've got all that stuff. We're going to talk about an interesting conversation that's been kind of going on. I know there's, I think every industry has message boards and some conversations, but a lot of things going on with people kind of badgering listing agents and trying to get some discounts and some other things. So we're going to talk about a little bit about how that goes on. Also, as we've been doing the bonus segment the past couple of weeks. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast to check that out. This week, we are going to be doing a buyer's agent bonus segment, which almost rhymes, almost kind of flows. I don't know. It's not haiku. It's something. What would that be? Buyer's agent bonus segment. I think it's
part of a limerick.
That's it. That's exactly
close. It's really
right.
Close.
So we'll be doing that as well after the on-air one goes. We'll continue the conversation. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast, the MDR Home Show podcast. You can do that at WIBA.com. You can also, of course, get to MDRealtyWI.com or follow them on Facebook. Let's start out talking a little bit about this, about what's been kind of going on and what folks have been doing. And, you know, everybody, we think about trying to find ways to save a buck here, a buck there. I mean, it's human nature. Let's talk a little bit about what's been kind of going on with folks when it comes to kind of contacting list agents and somehow thinking they're going to get some kind of deal.
Yeah, I was reading on Madison area real estate's Facebook group that we're a part of, and there's a story going around, a lot of agents commenting on it. And, you know, we also had some experiences with it, not the same people, but had some people come in and see the house and wanting, you know, me as the list agent to write the offer, thinking that they're going to get a discount. And what's happening is there's this couple that's been going around and they only contact list agents. And then they look at a house. If they like the house, they want to, you know, they say they want that list agent to write an offer, but they expect a discount because there's no buyer agent involved. And so there's this misconception out there that that's how it works. And so we just want to kind of set the record straight and talk a little bit more about that philosophy and what's going on. So.
And Ryan, I've got to ask, when it comes to the MLS, what do we kind of look for people who don't know what that is, and also a little bit about kind of when it comes to being that buyer's agent, what does that MLS mean to you? Well,
the commission is stated on the MLS on both the buying and the selling side, and the MLS is, it's a document that's out there. It's part of the real estate norm, if you will. And then when we do our contracts, as far as offers, then those are written into those contracts. And so I think it's just really comes down to people just not knowing. But it also comes down to people wanting to save. That everybody wants to save. Yeah. And I'm sure everybody listening right now, you want to save. You're looking for some sort of deal today. In fact, Sean and I were talking about how we love to visit secondhand stores, vintage stores. Yes. We're trying to always find a deal. My wife and I we go on dates this way. You know, we go out to eat, and then we're gonna go check out Goodwill, Salvation Army. We want to find that deal, and I think everybody's looking for that. Everybody's looking for that. But you know, when you have things that are stated in contracts, you know, you can ask the question, but you're probably most definitely all the time going to get a no.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is the MLS is the marketplace.
Right.
That's where the homes are for sale. That's your actual store. And so you're not going to the vintage store or going to Craigslist or going to Facebook, even though it's called Marketplace.
Yeah.
It's not secondhand stuff. I mean, yes, it could be a used house. It's not a brand new house. But at the same point, when you find it on the MLS, and you don't know if it's on the MLS or not when you're looking on Zillow, for example. And we could have talks about that all day long.
Oh, for sure. Oh, my gosh.
But if it's on the MLS, it is in the marketplace, and that commission is already in there, and it's part of a contract. And that contract is going to have a certain percentage on it. generally we see a lot of 6% listings. There's not price fixing or anything like that. I'm going to be clear to all the attorneys out there listening. And so
it's true.
But you see a lot of 6%. And in our marketplace, it's generally split in half, 3 and 3. If we go over to the Milwaukee area or the Milwaukee metro, it's split 3.6 to the list agent and 2.4 to the buyer's agent.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's just been that way forever. And until we one day get a full state MLS and kind of work together, and we'll see that change. But for now, that's how it is.
You know, I think of, like, you know, you go to like Costco, for example, and they've got products on the shelf, and this may surprise people. There's a margin baked into that. There's a percentage there that Costco is going to take, not for the product, but to pay their employees, to of course pay their shareholders, those type of things. Same holds true with real estate, and people for some reason have a hard time grasping that listen, there is a cost that it's more than just the house you're buying the other things involved with it.
Yeah, and I think everybody, again, it comes back to everybody's wanting that deal. You know, you're bringing up the Costco thing. Yeah. If you go into a store, more times than not, if I go into a store and I'm always doing house projects and things like that, and I'm always trying to do it myself, right? I'm always trying to do things myself so that I can save money. And I'm just trying to save money for my family. I'm trying to save money for me. I'm trying to, you know, because I'd like to spend money on golf and other things that I like to do. Rather, you know, so I just want to try to save as much as I can. But, you know, if I go into a hardware store, for instance, and I'm trying to find something, and I don't ask that guy coming down the aisle, and I don't ask him because I've been burned in the past, right? I don't ask him because he really doesn't know what he's talking about, and he doesn't know where to point me, or he'll say go on the other side of the store, and I'm like, wait, you're not going to take me there, and you know, so I try to do everything myself. Mm-hmm. I've never picked up a product off the shelf and said, "Ha, I did it. I did this myself." And then I go to the register and I look at that person and I say, "I did this all myself today. I didn't need anybody's help, and so I want a discount on this." It doesn't work that way. That person at the register is going to look at me and go,
"You could try."
I'm sorry. Yeah, you could try.
And I think that's what people are doing.
That's what people are doing.
Trying.
Right? They're trying to do that. Yeah. But that's, I think, the mentality of, you know, if it doesn't work that way at Costco, and you've got all that stuff baked into all of that, then it's not going to work in real estate that way. It just doesn't work, and it's not. We're not saying that because we are trying to sell anybody anything. It's just that's just the fact.
That's how it functions. And if you try and pull that at Costco or the hardware store, you will end up on their Facebook page. People talking about, hey, Ryan's been in here.
Yeah, yes. This guy keeps coming in asking for a discount because he didn't need any help.
Exactly. Talking this morning with Kevin Clark and Ryan Koenig, of course, of Making Dreams Realty, with Keller Williams, the website mdrealtywi.com. Their telephone number 480-8599. That's 480-8599. By the way, we've got both a buyer and seller's agent in studio. It is a great time. If you've ever had a question for somebody involved in whether listing a home or helping you buy a home, it's a great opportunity as well to get on the air with your question. If you've got a question about the process, trust me, a lot of other people have questions, the same question you may have. So it's a great opportunity to get on the air right now at 321-1310. That's 321-1310. We'll continue our conversation with Kevin and Ryan and take your call at 321-1310. That's 321-1310. In the meantime, I need you to get to mdrealtywi.com. Also on Facebook, Making Dreams Realty with Keller Williams, and their telephone number, 480-8599. That's 480-8599. We'll continue our conversation with Kevin and Ryan next as the MDR Home Show continues right here at 1310 WIBA. 1310 WIBA and the MDR Home Show with Making Dreams Realty. Online, mdrealtywi.com. That's mdrealtywi.com. Telephone number 480-8599. Guess just rocking out over there, talking this morning with Kevin and Ryan, talking a little bit about some of the things that go on and some of the services when it comes to working with a buyer's agent that are offered. And for folks who don't know, the buyer's agent is working for the buyer, and it's really important to have that person working for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's you need to be represented in this process, it is to your, if you're listening out there and you're looking to buy a house, it is to your best interest to be represented. And I know that sounds so salesy, right? I mean, we were talking about that this morning, Kev. Like, it just sounds so salesy. And I don't like that about this business. I just, coming from the ministry, I came from a place as a pastor where, definitely trying to sell things to everybody. Like, I was just trying to sell Jesus to the whole congregation, but it never was that for me. It was always, this is what it's done for me, and this is what it could do for you. This is the impact of that. That's why I love MDR. That's why I love Kevin and Renee and the team. Our whole team is able to come around every one of our clients in some way, shape, or form. And I think that it is a wonderful process. And I've had many closings and worked with many clients since I started. And it's an amazing process. It really is. And when you have that client looking at you going, I'm just so thankful. When I first got into this, I was guarded, I was standoffish, and I'm just so thankful for how you guys have led us through this. It was incredible.
Really helped them achieve those dreams. And
that's for sure.
One of the great things about MDR. We're, of course, joined in studio this morning by Ryan Koenig and Kevin Clark of Making Dreams Realty. If you have a question for Kevin and Ryan, great opportunity to get you on the air right now at 321-1310. That's 321-1310. And Ann joins us. Ann, welcome to the program. You're on the air with Kevin and Ryan from Making Dreams Realty.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for taking my call. This doesn't concern me personally, but it's something that happened to a good friend and neighbor. She had an accepted offer on her home with a closing date. Mm-hmm. She had put in an offer on another place. The seller's agent came back with accepting her offer, but included in that paperwork was a bump clause. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This just doesn't sound right to me. It sounds kind of unethical, to say the least. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, you're talking about the buyer of her house had a bump clause.
No, the seller of the property that she was purchasing. Okay. Included a bump clause in the contract.
Correct. And so she needed to sell her house in order to buy the next house, is what a bump clause is. And it's harsh, but at the same point, you have to look at it from the seller's side of the one she's buying, is that if she doesn't sell her house, then that contract's not going through and they've got to find a place to go. So while it might sound unethical, it's kind of the process that happens. In that bump clause, there's a timeline in there of 48, possibly 72 hours where your friend or your neighbor would be able to, get rid of the bump clause if they were getting bumped. And that would be through either a bridge loan or some other financing that could happen, or cash. And it may not be able to happen for them. And so that's the risk that they're taking. Now, we're in such a fast moving market that most homes are selling if they're priced right. So it's not like a huge concern, but of course you got to be on top of it and be ready with other houses to look at. It's a crazy market, and this is where representation is so important in what we're talking about, and that you have somebody looking out for your best interests and staying on top of things.
Really good question, Ann, and thanks for the call. And that is it. You mentioned the importance of representation as we're talking this morning, just about kind of value and what it is when it comes to a buyer's agent and a listing agent. What's that value? I think Ann illustrates very well what that role is, and having somebody who should be good agents will guide you through that process and say, here's what this, for example, the bump clause, here's what this is, here's what this means for you. Let's have these plans in place to make sure that things don't arise from this.
Well, I think even as a buyer's agent, I'm going to work with a buyer that needs to sell their house before they buy another house. And I have to tell them that here's the scenario. Like, I have to set them up early to help them understand that this is the scenario for you, but also we could be dealing with somebody else's scenario that we don't know about yet. And so we've got to keep our heads up in this. We're a team as we work together. And I think that when it does come down to the agent working with a client, the strength of a team, the strength of people working together, just really bodes well. And if you're listening out there, you got to get a hold of those agents that have that resource, that are really, really ready to work for you, with you, and pull those resources together. It's huge.
And for potential buyers too, we talk about kind of establishing a relationship, and there's more to it, by the way, than just simply, I want to work with this person. There are actually kind of legally defined areas too when it comes to that relationship. You've got to make sure that, for example, if you're driving down the street and you see a house, I'd like to buy that house, there's always going to be a name and number. That's of course what they're going to do, but you want to be sure that what you're doing is establishing the relationship with the right person, that correct agent. You really want to call somebody that you know and trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And even on Zillow, you go on Zillow and you're looking at a house and it says Premier Agent over on the side, contact a Premier Agent. Well, what does Premier mean? Most people don't understand that. And you would think, well, Premier means they're experienced. They know what they're doing. And it may be, it may not be. To be a Premier Agent on Zillow, you have to pay Zillow a bunch of money.
I was going to say it means their check clear.
It has absolutely
That's
nothing.
Exactly right. I mean, it's so true.
Nothing to do with how many transactions you've done, how good you are.
Nope.
So you're going to click on Premier Agent. It will not go to the list agent. It will go to a Premier Agent that has paid them. And so, those are some things just to understand. And so you do want somebody that you can trust. You should interview an agent, ask them, don't wait till you want to see a house. You have one in mind. It's almost too late at that point. You're just going to end up with somebody. You should sit down with an agent, maybe 2 or 3 agents, and interview them and ask them questions. Find out how they're going to work for you. See what questions they ask you. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next segment too, is what does Ryan do after somebody calls and sits down, or somebody on our team, Dawn or Shelley, and how does that process go? And Ann, if you're still listening out there, if your friend or neighbor had an accepted offer already, then there's not really much of a chance to be bumped unless that offer goes away, because they already have the accepted offer. What they have is a home sale contingency or a successful closing contingency, and they probably won't get bumped. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, that's good.
Really good information as always. Talking with Kevin Clark and Ryan Koenig, of course, our friends from Making Dreams Realty. The website, mdrealtywi.com. That's mdrealtywi.com. Don't forget, anytime you have questions, or maybe you're looking to list your house, maybe you're looking to buy, again, think about it right up front. Get some interviews going. Talk with the folks at Making Dreams Realty. Their telephone number, 480-8599. That's 480-8599. I mentioned the website, mdrealtywi.com. A great resource there with some great listings, a specific neighborhood even. If you're looking for a home in a certain price range, certain neighborhood, those kind of things. Really powerful resources up on the website, mdrealtywi.com. Also follow them on Facebook. As you can probably tell, they do have a lot of fun at Making Dreams Realty. They're really good people that really enjoy helping people achieve those dreams, but also having a good life, and of course helping people achieve those dreams is something that they really work towards. And if you go on their Facebook page, you can see a lot of that firsthand, some of the great relationships that develop, and of course folks on that closing date standing outside the home all happy. I love seeing those pictures.
Yeah, man. Those are good.
And you check that all out online at Making Dreams Realty with Keller Williams Facebook page. And of course, don't forget, with the regular page, we've been adding an extra segment, a bonus segment, podcast only. This week we'll be doing the Buyer's Agent bonus segment. We'll be doing that coming up next. Kevin, Ryan, we'll see you in just a couple of minutes on the podcast. You guys have a great day.
Thanks, Sean. You too.
And we'll be joined by Dan O'Donnell next here on 1310 WIBA. 1310 WIBA and the MDR Home Show. It is the Buyer's Agent bonus segment this week. It flows. I'm going to go with it flows.
It does, yeah.
May not flow like the Beastie Boys.
Once was a man from Nantucket. Buyer's Agent bonus segment. It's something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Buyer's Agent bonus segment.
Yeah. And we started the conversation off on the show today talking about the benefits of a buyer's agent and a little bit about some of the things that people do to try and they think they're going to somehow either save money or kind of circumvent some of these costs, and the understanding that this is baked into the sale of a home. It's part of the deal, and I know some great examples in that previous part of the show as well. Let's talk then, kind of moving to that next step, and we left off the show talking about the importance of interviewing a buyer's agent. Obviously, if you're going to sell, that's also a great piece of advice, is interviewing that listing agent, but getting to know that buyer's agent. And once you choose a buyer's agent, and Ryan, I'll ask you this, so when they do choose you, because that's who they're going to choose.
That's right. That is it.
Well, yeah, it is.
Well,
that's
either me, Dawn, or Shelley.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we don't want to get anybody in any trouble or anything like that.
Love you guys.
But let's then talk a little bit about when you're working with the family or working with the folks looking to buy that home, kind of how that relationship develops and how you're there to help them.
Well, I think I'll start with open houses. Probably the best time to meet people that are just shopping.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they're doing that day.
Yeah, their hands up. They're saying, "Hey, I'm looking."
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
This last Saturday, I did a doubleheader. Did 2 open houses, and it is my favorite thing to do because it is the most people-oriented part of the job, and I'm meeting strangers, and I have this whole setup in the kitchen. I'm ready to serve them. I have Little Debbie snack cakes. I have I mean, come on. I mean, this is a great opportunity to meet you, and I think that encounter really says a lot. I can really learn a lot from somebody in that moment. Like the people that are like, oh, like they just don't want to have anything to do with you. And it's not because of COVID-19. Yeah. It's because they just want to go through the house and, they don't want to feel pressured. This last Saturday, I'll just tell a quick story. This last Saturday, we did I was doing the open house and a sweet lady came in and she was looking at open houses that day. And, she had a pretty wide range of a price point. And, we're standing in the kitchen and I'm telling her about the house and she looks at me and she goes, I really have had a hard go with this. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And she said, I'm from Illinois and I have family up here and I'm just trying to get to Wisconsin. I'm trying to do a transition. And she didn't give me any details, but she gave me enough to say that she just really hasn't really felt like she's been helped. And then she started to allude to the fact that she was working with an agent in the area and she never called her back. Oh. And never. And I'm like, in this day and age, communication is very easy. I mean, it's through a text message, it's through a phone call, and those phone calls don't last very long. And, there are some clients that you're going to work with, and it's going to take a long time. And let me just say this, if you're not willing to work with them from the moment that you meet them at an open house, for instance, or the moment that they reach out on through the website, if you're not willing to work with them for a year or longer, then you shouldn't make that contact because some of these buyers are coming from a place where maybe they don't really need to find something, but they're just looking. And so those are what we call nurturers. And so we're going to nurture them and however long that takes. But then you have some buyers that come in and they're like, we need something now. I mean, I had an open house where I had a couple come in and I was explaining to them about a buyer's agent and I said this. And Sean, you know this, and I was going to ask you, you probably know more about real estate now that you've been doing this show than a lot of people. But I just was standing there and I was talking to 2 couples at the same time. And I said, a buyer's agent costs you nothing. And that guy was like, really? I mean, he was just blown away by that. And we ended up looking at just a few houses. Wrote them an offer on a house of really their dreams in Wisconsin. They were just like, this is exactly what we were looking for. And because of that open house, that meeting right there, me being honest with them in that moment, jumping on board with them, getting them set up on a search, now we're going to be off to closing. And so that's exciting. And so it's very important to have those contacts. Mm-hmm. It's very important to what's the principle that you under commit and over deliver, right? And so that's what we want to do, and that's I think the heart of MDR for sure.
And when you mentioned that it doesn't cost you anything, and that's the other thing I think it's really important is we highlight there, not all buyer's agents are created equal, and it goes back to that importance of that initial conversation. It's not as though having Ryan work with you is going to cost you more than have somebody who's going to ignore all your calls. It's not going to cost you anything either way. So if you're doing that stuff, you really want to make sure that you're getting the best in somebody that you click with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand that concept. Mm-hmm. It doesn't cost them anything. And just to hit on it again, from the first segment, we talked how the commission is in the contract already, why it's on the MLS. Mm-hmm. And so the sellers in the state of Wisconsin pay almost all of the closing costs, not your loan closing costs for your buyers, but they pay the commissions, they pay the title fees and all that. Other states it may be different. So if people come from another state, they may not be used to that. So that's understandable. But if you've lived here your whole life, this is something you definitely should know. And that is, and it's probably like 99% of the time. And the other 1% where it doesn't happen, it's a for sale by owner that's just unwilling to pay any commissions. And they're doing themselves a disservice. Those for sale by owners are out there and they're not in the marketplace. So their product is not in the store.
Right.
Their product is strictly on, some places it's just on a sign outside their house on a non-busy road. It's like, good luck with that. That's all you're doing. Others, they put it on Zillow maybe. And Zillow, you can't distinguish unless you do a specific search.
Right.
Although it will say at the top for sale by owner.
But even those aren't even listed sometimes.
And those aren't listed on the MLS. And Ryan, as a buyer's agent, is looking majority on the MLS because that is the marketplace. He will look, though, for his buyers. And that's what we're going to talk about here next is, what happens when you sit down with a buyer, Ryan? And so you do decide, all right, it's okay. I can work with a buyer's agent. It's not going to cost me anything, but I want to make sure it's a good one. So you sit down in that consultation. What are some of the questions you're asking and what info do you want to find out?
Well, I mean, the bottom line is what do you want out of this process? Not just a house. What do you guys need through this? And that is a trick question because I don't think that they're thinking about that because they're only thinking about a house. And so I opened the buyer consultation packet, and that's what I love about MDR too, guys, is that we're not just on a whim here. Things are planned, things are ready, things are structured. There's admin that have worked hard to make sure that these buyer consultation meetings are very fruitful. And so I sit down and I just ask them, what do you guys need through this process? And we talk about the house and all that kind of stuff. Then what do you need from me? What would you like from me? Number one response. Can you guys guess?
To be available.
Okay, that's one. Yes.
Man, I was
starts with a C.
Commitment.
Commitment's good, but that's not
Communication.
it. Communication.
Yeah.
There you go. Number one thing, and you know what? In ministry, that was the number one thing everybody wanted was communication.
So you should be good at that.
Hey, what do you guys want in your marriages? Communication, right? What do you guys? What do we want from our kids, right? Communication. So, I mean, it's the number one need from for people. And again, going back to the story about the lady through the open house, she just really felt like she wasn't communicated with, and so asking those questions. What's your price point? Right. Yeah. Let's talk about your monthly affordability. So we have these really cool apps that we sit down with people with and we show them, this is what you can afford. And then a lot of times that's really interesting, Sean, because you think in one way, this is what you can't afford, right? Because this is what I'm paying rent. And so this is what I can't afford. This is what's comfortable. So I show them what a $1,200 payment equates to how much house they can buy. Yeah. And a lot of times they're like, kind of bummed out a little bit. Like, gosh, I thought I could afford a $300,000 house. No, this is how much you can afford.
I also think sometimes people when they see I think sometimes when they see what they can afford with rent, though, they also, especially if you're renting in Madison, you see what you can afford and you go, why have I been renting so long as well?
Yeah,
we're talking those two guys.
Yeah,
those two guys on the golf course.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the fact that they're doing it together and spending $1,500 each renting the same place, so that's $3,000 a month they're spending. It's a nice apartment downtown, but at the same point, one of them could buy a house and have the other one rent for $1,500.
Yes,
that'd be in a bigger space.
So we played golf with these two, or I was playing golf with these two guys, and we ended up at Kevin's backyard, and Kevin had said that to them, and we're standing there, and I could just see this guy's wheels just shift. And I think that's another part about these buyer consultation meetings is that you really start to see people's framework come into play. Like they start now taking what they had thought, or, and again, I had a buyer consultation Saturday morning, and she is just like, all she's done is scroll through Zillow. That's all she's done. Now we're sitting down and now we're talking about this, and you can start to see the framework come into play, and it was really cool.
Is there something too when we talk about? By the way, I was going to ask you about the golf shirt too, because we didn't get a chance to bring that up on the show.
We definitely will, because people are trying to save money, right? Yeah, exactly. We all are. We're all trying to. But there's a cost to that.
We'll get to that in just a moment. But one of the things too with that is as we talk about some of the benefits of the buyer's agent, you mentioned like scrolling through Zillow and seeing things on websites and those type of things, which are fantastic, but I know for us, when we were looking at a home, I was like, okay, I'm concerned with what's in the walls. What does the house look like? Whereas my wife, who is the brilliant one, says, but what about the area? What about the neighborhood? And to her, this huge priority was something that never showed up on a listing. And without working with the proper agent and getting this stuff down, we would have never realized this. The schools were right across the road. And to my wife, it's like, the house is almost secondary to the fact that she wanted
a certain area.
Yeah, a certain area that listen, if the kiddo's walking home from school, he's not walking too far, those type of things. But having that relationship with and your agent understanding that stuff and going back to that interview and that conversation through that process, knowing you, knowing your personality, knowing your needs and your family structure, that's an important part of it as well.
Well, the tough part about that is that we as agents have to be careful because I can't look at a neighborhood and go, this is a bad place. You know, like I can't go, well, I know the guy that lives down the street here and you don't want to be close to him. You know,
we got to practice fair housing.
Yeah,
we have to keep in line with things. And so my strategy, what I do is I sit down with people and I do ask them about the area. So let's talk about that. And in Janesville specifically, you know, there's certain parts of Janesville that people want to be in, and they'll ask me, so what do you think about this part of Janesville? And I'm like, well, what I've heard is this.
Yeah.
And so I'm only telling you what I've heard. Now, I've had multiple clients that have bought in all parts of Janesville, and they're fine. That's just where they want to be. And with this market right now, you kind of have to be a little bit open-minded. Well, we want to be in this school district. Okay, let's look in this school district. But that school district is sought after. That's what we know. And so there's going to be a limited amount of inventory there, and value and taxes are probably going to be a little bit higher in that school district. And so let's just get honest about this. Okay, well, I think we'll just wait then for something to come up in this. And so then we'll look back and I'll go, well, in the last 6 months, this is for the square footage, the amount of bedrooms, this is how many houses have sold in the last 6 months and for how much. And this is how much you can afford.
Yeah, and this is like a really big part of what the buyer agent is going to do, you know, for the client, and that is they're going to do some research. They're going to help them set expectations. I mean, if you're going into it thinking, you know, you're going to find a $300,000 house and pay $250,000, you know, you're not thinking clearly of this market. And so I did a quick search on Dane County homes over the last 30 days that have sold. The average list price was $381,681. The average sold price was $381,920.
Oh, wow.
That's average. So it was, you know, about $300 almost higher. So you're basically paying list price.
Yeah.
And you need to understand that. Now, that's not always going to be the case. And we can certainly find if there's a house that's been sitting for 300 days, you may not have to pay list price, but it all depends on if another person comes in and wants it. At the same time, you know, timing's everything, location's everything.
Oh, it is.
This is what Ryan's, you know, going to do for the buyer, though, is help them figure that out. And
I think having your finger on the pulse of the facts, right? Because I've had conversations with buyers and they'll say things and I'm like, well, that's not really true. Let me tell you the truth here. And that's that. I mean, I did that as a pastor. I mean, I would always people would say things about the Bible and Christianity and stuff. And the church, boy, that was a lot. There was a lot of that. Or they talk about other people, right? And I'd be like, that's not necessarily true. And so, you know, let's talk about the facts here, and let's look at the research. You know, let's look at the actual MLS. Let's look at the store. Let's go into the store and let's see what is there, because I know that you want to get a house for this much, but these are how much the houses are going for. If you want a house for this much, let's go see this much, and you will see the golf shirt. That looks great.
Yes.
That analogy. Should I tell the story?
We have plenty of time. Yes,
so
we got to hear this.
Kevin and I were talking about saving on the way over here and how everybody wants to save. And if you listen to the radio show, we talked about that a little bit. You know, everybody's wanting to save, and I'm there too. I don't think Kevin's ever been to a Goodwill. In fact, you told me. I think you told me that you've have you?
I drop stuff off all the time.
Oh my gosh!
Notice I've got a windbreaker that says Kevin C on it.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know if I have ever had a windbreaker.
Well, then I'll talk to Sean Preble. So Sean and I, we found out at the beginning of the radio segment is that we like to go
Thrifting.
Yes, we love thrift store shopping, and Kristen and I love to do the date thing. Now, what I have found is, golf clothes. Golf's an expensive hobby all the way around, right?
Yeah.
I've found great golf clubs at Goodwill, thrift stores, all this kind of stuff. But golf clothes, you can find a lot of golf clothes at Goodwill and these thrift stores. And so I didn't think anything of it. Just kind of shopping around one day, found this FootJoy golf shirt that was in mint condition, beautiful shirt. I was like, oh my gosh, this thing's like a $60 shirt for $6.
Score, yeah.
I mean, I'm like rocking this thing out. And so I was so happy about that. And that's the other thing, right, Sean? When you buy something and you're like, oh, I just like totally scored here. And I'm like on top of the world.
Until you find out.
Until the rest of the story. Who was the guy that did that? The radio?
Paul Harvey.
Paul Harvey.
Yeah.
Stand by for news.
Yeah. So there is another part of the story for thrift store thrifty people, and so I bought this golf shirt, and I couldn't wait to play golf in this shirt because I like to look good, feel good, play good, right, Kevin Clark? So, and so I'm out on the course, and it was in the summer, and this was last year, 2019, and I am sweating in this shirt. And I start smelling the worst body odor ever. And I don't stink. That's one of the things that my wife, and she's listening to this podcast right now, you know, honey, that I do not stink. And that's one of the things she said to me all the time. She's like, I just don't understand how you don't stink. And so I knew it wasn't me. I knew it. I was like, this thing, and I would do this deal, like you just lift up your shirt. Yeah. You're like, what the world's going on? And I went to smell the armpit area, and oh my gosh, you guys, it almost knocked me out. And I realized that what I'm wearing now is a shirt that somebody had worn that they sweat in. Mm-hmm. And now I'm smelling their sweat. So my perspiration is now causing that sweat that's embedded in that shirt to come out. All because I was so excited about saving money on this shirt. Mm-hmm. And it would have been way better for me to buy a $60 shirt. Yes. So sometimes saving money is not your best interest. And so let me tie that back to the house. Mm-hmm. So just yesterday, we went and saw two houses with this couple. The one house was way more expensive than the other house, but they wanted to see the house that was cheaper. They wanted to see that house that was out in the country and that had the same square footage and the same bedrooms. And but I knew that the price point was. And I had talked to that agent, and he had told me some things, and I was like, oh man, this is going to be rough. It was rough. I mean, we walked into this house, it was cheaper, and we got back out to the driveway, and she looked at me and she goes, you were right. And I just looked at her and I said, every house is going to have a low price point that is way under what it looks that it's worth on the Zestimate or whatever. We've got to be careful of those because they're a young couple. They're first-time home buyers. They've got babies on the way. They don't need to get into a place where it's going to be this massive fixer-upper, where they're going to get into this thing and they're thinking they got this great deal and it's going to be really bad.
And then pretty soon they start to sweat and they smell somebody else's body odor.
Oh, my gosh.
So you don't want that.
No, it's disgusting.
You don't want that. You want to make sure you're working with somebody that's working for you, knows your dreams, wants you to achieve those things. Of course, folks at Making Dreams Realty would love to do that for you. Again, Making Dreams Realty with Keller Williams. The website, mdrealtywi.com. That's mdrealtywi.com. And their telephone number, 480-8599. That's 480-8599. This has been the Buyer's Agent bonus segment right here on Making Dreams Realty, the MDR Home Show. Kevin, Ryan, great to see both of you guys. Have a great day.
You too, Sean. Thanks.